Hello, and welcome to the Emotional Endurance Movement. This week's episode is dedicated to your one friend who's juggling a lot.
I can do 2.
I can do
I'm
two.
like an expert. Look at me go with 2. I'm a professional.
Oh, shit.
I always suck.
You know the one.
I know the one.
Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Emotional Endurance Movement, the only mental health variety show that's actually concerned about are you taking care of your nervous system? I'm Laurie Page, your Chief Coping Officer, and here with me is our behaviorist at large, Crimson McDonald.
Howdy, y'all.
On this week's episode, we're exploring the feeling of overwhelmed and the coping skill of downshifting your nervous system. We're also making a very exciting announcement, so let's go ahead and get into it. And this week, we're starting off where we always start off, which is how is our emotional endurance? So, Crimson, walk us through your emotional endurance assessment for this week.
Right, Lori. So it looks like I've gone up a little bit, which is good. And it all makes sense to me. I guess every time I do this, I want it to make sense and for it to match since, I guess we created it. And it is. So honestly, my hope and optimism and resilience are all a product of my kids going back to school. I hate routine. I hate the schedule. I don't even like using the word hate. And so I'm using it as viciously as I mean to. I hate back to school. I feel like my resilience has gone down, but it's more just like my perceived resilience because I don't want to be resilient and I am resistant to resilience because I'm tired of having to be resilient and I'm not optimistic. My son's going to wake up every morning and I'm not hopeful that it's going to be cheery and hunky dory of a year to get through math. So I think that is why my hope, optimism, and resilience are down, but self-efficacy and environmental efficacy is going up because what we'll be talking about later professionally, we have knocked out some things I never thought would be humanly possible. And environmentally, I feel like, yeah, my family's just been in a good mood, if that's a thing. So yeah, it's been helpful. And maybe it's just the get back to school energy and vibe going on. But yeah, so it's making sense to me, and I'm happy at 6.8.
It's funny how like just certain transitions and seasons are it's like, okay, here we go again. I know this one.
I'm really annoyed with the world because, and okay, yes, I should have known this. I'm a human. I have a brain. I'm a behaviorist. If anything, I should have known. But the biggest gap in the plan to become a parent was realizing I would be forced into the institution that is education. And what's ridiculous is I love school. I would have been a perpetual student. Like if I would have been born a millionaire, I would have just been a perpetual student my whole life. So it's weird for me to say that. But the problem with your kids going to school is you have all the structure and stuff that I hated about it. I don't get any of the fun. Like I'm not the one getting educated. And the people I'm sending out to do it don't seem that interested. And so it just seems like a kind of a fight. And so to anyone planning on having children, I'm not saying don't do it because of it, but I was ill prepared for this chapter. I hate back to school. Not my jam. Just not my jam.
It's funny because I'm certain if you look back to our episodes, the end of May, right before I hurt myself, I was in a very similar space because I was putting together for the first time as a parent that the end of school is as busy as the start of school. And I had a total blind spot there. So absolutely, I get it. And actually, if you go to my EEA, like I feel it too this week. Like when you said overwhelmed, I was like, yeah, that would be an appropriate feeling because it's pretty overwhelming right now. Like we are in it. Kids go back to school this week and you can see I've got a dip on my score. And honestly, it's interesting because I kind of have the flip where a lot of my reserves have gone up, but my overall endurance has gone down. And I can tell you the reason why is because I'm tired. Like we took the kids out of state to the Children's Museum this weekend. We saw family, we traveled, we bought all the school supplies because it was also the tax-free weekend in Ohio. So like, gotta get that in. We did all the things. I'm just worn out. And for me, I think the other reason my emotional endurance index dipped even lower is like still getting out and doing physical things, like being on my leg all day at the Children's Museum, which I did great. It was great. I was
Congrats.
exhausted, exhausted, like no more in the
Yeah.
tank. The other thing is seeing family it's a lot of emotional energy expended for me, but also look how high that hope is. Look how high the optimism is. Look how high my environmental efficacy, which by the way has been my lowest score all summer because of the things that happened to me in May and things that I experienced. And it went up. I got to see my grandpa this weekend, and viewers of the pod know that I lost my grandma earlier this year. So this is my first time seeing him since the funeral. And we sang and we held hands and we spent time together, and I got to see the tomatoes he was growing. And it was just really, really great and really lifted my spirits, but was also emotionally challenging. It is hard to see my grandpa, my big, strong, powerful grandpa, struggling to move around or to know exactly what time it is or what's going on in the conversations. I definitely feel like my reserves are higher, but in order to get those reserves higher, it took a lot of extra energy.
Yeah, my mom had a medical emergency, and I think that took a hit to my hope and optimism too.
Yeah.
That's part of life, man. This part of life is very hard.
It is.
But I'm
It
proud of you. I'm glad you got
is.
times with tomatoes and beer, right?
Tomatoes and beer. Check out
Is
my
that the
grandpa.
song?
He's a YouTube star. He's
On.
so talented. And he has more followers than we do, which is adorable.
Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong.
It's my cousin
Sometimes I get
Kevin.
half tight and
This is a
right.
family affair.
Tear jerking song like I like tomatoes, straight from the vine. Little red potatoes and new green beans, sometimes with a little wine and
That's my
like
grandma.
dear. And I'm glad you're here, but not nearly as much as tomatoes and beer.
That's awesome.
So my other aunt was the videographer, and
That's
he has a whole
adorable.
channel.
I remember watching it years ago, and it was adorable then, and it's adorable now. And interesting, I've never put this together, but my maternal grandfather was a singer and guitar player.
Very
He was in a
cool.
quartet and sang country music down in El Paso, Texas, was young.
Yeah.
And when he got older, he was in the quartet. It gave
Very
me my
cool.
granddad vibes too.
Yeah,
Well, I'm
yeah.
glad you had a good weekend, Lori. I'm glad you got some time with him.
But I'm pooped. Like I am pooped to scoot. And so I now have a new understanding as well how my emotional endurance is interrelated with my physical endurance. Like I think that's another thing that healing from this injury has kind of taught me over the last couple of months. And this weekend and
And
seeing my
aging.
score solidifies it. Yeah. Yeah. This is what happens when you're post 40, no longer a spring chicken.
Yeah, it
I'm
hurts
a
and it
summer
takes a lot to
chicken.
heal. I feel more like fall. Winter is coming. Winter is coming, Lori.
All right. Now it's time for our insight of the week. Crimson, what is it?
All right, I love that I get to pick these out because it's my favorite part of the week because I get to read like cool quotes.
Oh no, did you
So
quote
this
yourself
week,
again?
no, I really want to start doing that more, but I found this one and I loved it because I had just had a life experience that reminded me of this. All right, so this comes from Annie Lamott. And for those that don't know, Annie Lamott, she is a writer that wrote about like interpersonal relationships and mental health. So it's within our wheelhouse. Almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you. And so I feel like as a millennial that grew up with before you call, unplug it and restart commercials for our internet, that, this was a millennial joke, right? Is you got to reboot. You got to reboot it. Anytime there's a problem in life, you reboot it.
Yeah.
And I feel that way about humans too. Like sometimes you need a reboot, and that requires to unplug for a little bit. And recently, a friend went through a bunch of traumatic experiences all at once, and she called me like, what do I do? And I gave her the advice I never take, which is this: you do nothing. You stop, you take the day off work, you go to the pool, and you focus on you and you make that happen. And she named all the reasons it wasn't going to happen. And I was like, I don't like excuses, just make it happen. And she made it happen. And she called me and she's like, I feel like a different person. So I love that she took advice I don't take for myself.
I mean, there's a
So when I
great
saw this quote,
saying, take my advice because I'm not.
I fit the mold very well, but I was happy it worked for her. But this quote, I think we should all rely on much more.
I like it. I agree. I think that sometimes a reset is really what's needed. I will always tell clients a change of scenery can do so much for you. And I think that this is an important thing to recognize, that we can't always be on, even though we seem to always expect ourselves to be on. So, yeah, I love it. I think that this is correct. And it's true. I mean, the number one best piece of advice you can give anyone for anything electronic is, did you try turning it off and back on again? And they're going to
You just gotta
glare
unplug
at
it and
you
plug it
because
back
we
in.
all glare at each other, because obviously we did that step, but it's like part of the social. It's like saying, hi, how are you? You know, it's like somebody has to say it.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I just need to listen to it. That's the key. Yep.
Now it's time for our feeling of the week: overwhelmed. Crimson, what is the definition of overwhelmed?
All right. The official definition is overwhelmed is the feeling that occurs when the demands being placed on you exceed, or you feel like they exceed, your capacity to meet them.
I feel like we often don't think about or recognize that overwhelmed is a feeling, because most of us are just perpetually overwhelmed. It just feels like a state that we have to exist in. But it
Right.
is a feeling, and you're absolutely right. It's a feeling that happens when your demand goes up, but your capacity doesn't. And your body usually notices these things before your mind does. And have you ever had that moment when you're going about your day, and maybe it's a hard day, and maybe you're just like pushing through and you're struggling through, and then something happens and all of a sudden you're on the verge of tears, or you realize how tight your shoulders are, or you feel like you can't breathe? Those are the moments when like your body's been feeling and managing the overwhelm, usually from a more dysregulated approach, because you don't have the capacity to deal with it all. And this is part of how our body keeps us safe, but it really can wreck your day. Because overwhelm actually can feel a lot of different ways in your body. It can be a tight chest, shoulders pushed up. It could be having to like reread the same email 4 times, or opening the fridge and closing it and being like, what did I come here for? Or you have 11 things to do and they're all important. You know you need to get them done, but you do 0 of it. And then you call yourself lazy. If this sounds familiar, you are probably overwhelmed in those moments and not really recognizing what's happening to you emotionally.
All of it. I have hit a state of overwhelm that makes me realize that we may live in a constant state, but it still goes up.
Yeah. Overwhelm, I think, is a big part of everybody's day-to-day problem.
We just talked about, I mean, just right now in this last week, like my mom had a health crisis, trying to get back to school stuff, trying to drip like every single moment of joy left out of summer. And then what we're going to talk about in our show and tell. It's a lot.
It is a lot. And you bring up a good point, which is that overwhelm isn't always bad. Sometimes we're overwhelmed with emotion. Like me seeing my grandpa, that was a good experience. I was overwhelmed with emotion, very much so.
Mhm.
Like it can
Yeah.
happen in good moments too. But we have to be mindful and aware of when we experience overwhelm, not just accept it in a disempowered way. I think this is where a lot of us kind of struggle with overwhelmed. Like it is what it is, right? And there's
Yep.
always a balance here, because sometimes it truly is what it is. And sometimes it's the fact that your nervous system is super amped up because of everything going on around you. And if you find a way to downshift it, you can actually help yourself deal with that overwhelm more effectively in the moment. Because here's the thing that nobody tells you about overwhelm: is it's not a failure of your willpower, your motivation, your own abilities. It's literally just a gears mismatch. Like you are putting things into your system that you are either don't have the capacity to process, or just are avoiding processing, or you're just so overloaded that you don't even know how overloaded you are because you're just numbed out and stuck. I think these patterns happen to all of us more than we would like to admit, myself included. Overwhelm might be the most prevalent emotion in our current culture.
I mean, it's at least the one we're discussing the most because I feel like it's universal right now. It's been kind of universal for a while, but maybe it's a generational thing. But I feel like we've been overwhelmed for a decade. And this may be adulting, but my mom is, and she was a very successful career woman. She's always like, I was never this overwhelmed. And so, I don't know, maybe it's our perception, or maybe it's the fact that the world's on fire.
So let's talk about something overwhelming that's going on in our life right now that's very exciting, very, very positive, which is we are getting ready to launch and debut a new emotional endurance experience brought to you by our company Sprouting Change that is focused on planting the seeds for better coping for everybody. This is the Emotional Endurance Carnival, and you may be wondering, what the heck is that? And that's a fair question. Crimson, would you care to answer?
Yeah, so this is an interactive experience where you will be educated about your nervous system and how it can be reactive to triggers. And we are going to help you explore that space between the stimulus and response in a very fun, lighthearted, beautiful, we really are into the beautiful part way. It's going to be an uplifting experience that will empower you to exercise these skills daily.
Absolutely. So we, as y'all know, we have been coping across America for the last 18 months. We've been in 14 different states at, I think, over like 50 events talking about emotional endurance. And people are hungry to talk about it, but talking about it's not enough because this isn't just a cognitive issue. This is about helping you learn how to downshift, our coping skill of the week, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a moment, your nervous system when you're triggered inevitably by life. Because look around, tiny triggers are everywhere. And I'm not just talking about the big macro issues. I'm talking about the small things that trip you up day to day. We all need to do the work to equip ourselves to build more responsive nervous systems because the world has enough reactivity right now. And so the Emotional Endurance Carnival is our newest, funnest, most absurdly lighthearted approach to the typical doom and gloom conversation about mental health so that you can transform the relationship you have not only with your nervous system, but with yourself in just one afternoon.
It's so exciting. We have tried to find a way to bring our thought leadership to people in a way that will empower them to do this work daily. And I think it's been a challenge sometimes because it seems so simple. But the reality is simple tasks may be simple, but if you don't practice them, they are not automatic. And this is part of the hardwiring, the resilience that we talk about, and seeing how when you actually use these simple coping skills, they do work. And you get to see the variety of coping skills and the benefit of filling your toolbox full of different coping skills in different ways. This is a really interdisciplinary experience where you get to come in and have a holistic, interactive experience in a safe space where you can explore your true ability to control what the one thing humans can control that every other species can't, which is how we respond versus just reacting. And I love it. You can get your tickets for debuting in Fort Thomas, Kentucky on September 13th and find out more and come visit us and come learn about it. And if you aren't local, stay in touch with us through our newsletter or our social media and you will see how cool this experience really is.
So this is our show and tell for this week, is to show y'all what we have been working on. And in the coming weeks, there will be more things that we will show you. So get excited. And we hope to bring the carnival somewhere nearby you. So, this is part of it as well, is that we think this is a fun way for us to get out into the world and build our community more. And we hope that you like it. I'm sure you will. It's
Yeah.
good. It's super cute, super fun. And honestly, we all need a positive emotional experience when it comes to how do we stay regulated in this very dysregulating world. And that is what we aim to provide.
Yep. It's going to be fun. Get your tickets.
Now it's time for us to talk about our coping skill of the week, which, as I said, is deeply related to the carnival. The idea of the carnival is that you're going to come and we're going to gently trigger you, and then you're going to have the opportunity to practice taking your nervous system from a state of dysregulation and downshifting it back into regulation. Remember, when dysregulation happens, often our nervous system is just trying to protect us, and it views really anything that is uncertain or unexpected or confusing, as well as many additional things, a threat. And so when we expect that we will get triggered in life because that's our nervous system working the way it's meant to work to keep us safe, then we have to learn how to manage it and downshift. And the truth is that you cannot just think your way out of overwhelm. You have to do something a little bit deeper. You got to go into your body because there's part of your brain that is offline when you become dysregulated. And it's the part that really does a lot of your logical thinking. So using that skill isn't really going to be accessible. We need to go into the body first, and that is what downshifting is. So let me give you an example of 3 different moves that you can take to help your body downshift. One is you can make your exhale longer than the inhale. I know it sounds simple, but that's it. That's the whole trick. So if you inhale for 4, exhale for 8, the heart rate will start to follow your exhale. This seems like, how would that make a difference? But it's really key to the plumbing of your whole system. When you take longer exhales than inhales, it signals to your brain and to your body that there is safety for you to do so. Another way you can downshift is you can soften your eyes and your gaze. When you're stressed, your vision literally becomes like tunnel vision. And downshifting works in the other direction. When you really try and focus your gaze so that you can see everything around you, you signal to your nervous system that it's safe for you to take in the full picture and not just the narrow one. And the final one that I can give you for today is to move something rhythmically. So this can be the bilateral stimulation that we've talked about. This can also be walking, especially if you get your arms going. This helps with getting your heart rate up, but also helps to create that rhythmic movement. Anytime we're doing that bilateral, 2 sides of the body talking to 2 different sides of the brain, it creates more of a natural flow in our state, which also communicates safety. So those are 3 ways that you can quickly downshift your nervous system if you find yourself becoming dysregulated. And honestly, none of those are ones that are in our carnival. So you can only imagine the type of cool approaches, games, skill building that we have in this space where we're really trying to go beyond just the mundane. And although these skills that I presented today seem really simple, the truth is that if you practice them consistently, they will have a considerable impact on your ability to manage your state when you do get triggered, because that happens in life. So that's all for this week's skill of the week. All right, now it's time to this week's game of the week. And honestly, we came up with a great one that is also related to downshifting your nervous system, because we are going to work, both Crimson and I are going to work to juggle 3 lemons, and we're going to see how this goes. Now, interesting kind of shift. Mine are real lemons, juicy, and Crimson's are 3D printed lemons. Oh,
I'm on a great start.
all right, well, Crimson's getting her lemons together. I want to tell you a little bit about juggling, because I did not know. I learned this as I prep for today's episode. But juggling itself can be a downshifting act. It's rhythmic movement, right? We just talked about this. And they actually have done some research on this. So a study found that women with anxiety who juggled 3 balls for a few minutes twice a day showed bigger drops in state anxiety, trait anxiety, tension, depression, and anger than the non-juggling group. Researchers think that it's the rhythmic bilateral visual tracking when you are juggling is similar to the mechanisms of EMDR, a popular clinical therapeutic technique for PTSD and other trauma and anxiety. You are using bilateral stimulation as you are processing with a clinician. Now you're going to attempt to see us juggle. So here's what I was told. Here's how we start with juggling. You start with 1 lemon, 1 hand, and you just get that going. All right. And then you get 1 lemon, 2 hands. Shit.
As far as sitting, I think it'd be easier standing.
I mean, if you can stand up if you want.
I got 2. I'm going.
Oh, you're going. Okay. And then we add in 2.
I'm brilliant. I still want to hit myself in the head. Okay. Let's get my 3rd one going here.
Okay. I got 2 going.
Oh, man.
Okay.
I can start with the 3rd one. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Oh my God, this is hard.
1 eternity later.
Can AI make us look good at this?
I don't even think AI can do that.
Okay. We can do this.
Okay.
I can do 2.
I can do
I'm
2.
like an expert. Look at me go with 2. I'm a professional.
Oh, shit.
Oh, we suck. I really think though that this is a representation of me coping. I quit. Okay, so I have to say, as a coping skill, if you attempt this when you are struggling or when you feel like you need to downshift, I see why it works, because nothing matters right now as much as my frustration that I cannot get 3 lemons rotating in my hands. So whatever else is stressing me out at this moment, it's this.
I think we might have to keep with our juggling, Crimson. This might be something you and I are just going to have to keep working on.
I think these 3 lemons are going to be my jungle lemons.
Juggle
And I
lemon.
think I'm going to get a little fruit basket for my desk with 3D lemons.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to
Which
set
the 3D
2.
lemons will be featured at the carnival.
They will be.
I don't just print 3D lemons for fun. These are going to have to be a desk accessory.
Like we both said, this is a great coping skill. You should definitely try juggling to cope.
Yeah, I don't care about anything anymore.
It's so
Anxious to
good.
get off this so I can go be an expert.
And that's all for this week's episode of the Emotional Endurance Movement. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe before you skedaddle off into the world to practice the coping skill of down regulating and understanding your overwhelm as a little bit more present than maybe you've thought about previously. I'm Laurie Sharp-Page, and this was my co-host, Crimson McDonald, and we hope to see you back next week on the Emotional Endurance Movement for more great coping conversations. Bye!
Peace out, y'all.